All topics covered here are for conversational purposes only and do not constitute financial advice. Please contact us for advice on all matters discussed here from one of our professionals. Welcome back, listeners, to the FS360 Podcast, brought to you by M Group. We're here to explore the human side of financial wellbeing this week, because money decisions are never just about numbers. They're about life, resilience and perspective. I'm your host, Gavin Nash, and today I welcome Lynde Adams, an aged care professional in our Mildura office.
Good
welcome,
morning.
Lynde.
Thanks, Gav.
Welcome along to the podcast.
Thank you for coming along to Mildura.
Your second podcast.
It is.
Welcome along. And everyone watching on the website will be wondering who the two gentlemen are sitting to the left of me. But today's conversation is one that really brings those themes together. We're joined by Ben Pettingil and Mike Rolls, also known as Legless and Blind, who have lived experiences of navigating physical disability from a young age. Welcome, gents.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here,
We're
Gav.
pumped to be here, Gavin.
100%.
Looking forward to having a chat all things resilience, finance and everything in between.
Good on you. That's great. And you guys are seasoned professionals in the podcast space, aren't you?
Oh, I wouldn't call us that.
Having a podcast.
We've done a couple.
We certainly
Done a
have.
couple.
No, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, great. We've had the two gentlemen to my left are in town this week, talking with community groups, business groups, schools and sporting clubs with their unique Talking Tough message. So today we're going to talk about resilience, mindset and, importantly, how those experiences shape the way we think about financial security and independence. So Ben and Mike, thanks so much for being here again.
Mate, pleasure. Let's do it.
It's great. I had Lynde and I had the pleasure of listening to these two gentlemen yesterday, didn't we, Lynde? So
Absolutely.
Amazing
Great.
stories. But we're gonna start off by asking you to tell a sort of a short version of your stories for the podcast today. Ben, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely you can. So as you both heard a few times yesterday, across the number of different events that we held in Mildura and M Group was a sponsor for. So thank you very much for your support. My sort of life all changed when I was 16 years old. So up until that point in time, able-bodied, love sport, love being outdoors. And then one day sitting at school, sort of noticed that everything had become a tiny little bit blurry in terms of what I was seeing. And then it was a slight headache. We got it checked out. Woke up the next day having lost 98% of my eyesight. So it was pretty sudden. And then naturally you get a whole heap of tests done, and about 2 weeks later we got brought back into the hospital, sat back down and delivered the news that I had a really rare genetic condition that was 1 in a million. It was incurable, and I got told then and there that I was going to be blind for life. So
As a teenager,
16. So that's nearly half my life ago now, which is crazy to think that I've nearly lived more of my life not being able to see than being able to see. But I suppose turns your world upside down, throws a whole heap of different challenges your way, not just from physical point of view, but mental health, well-being, mindset, and also the perception of sort of what's possible from other people's point of view. And then there's a whole range of barriers around accessibility and things like that too.
Great, thanks Ben. I know there's a much more detailed version of that story that we heard yesterday, but thanks for abbreviating it for us. But yeah, it's such a life-changing situation to happen, especially in your teenage years. But something similar happened to you at the same age.
Life changed. When I listen to Ben, and we're best mates, I get to hear him speak a hell of a lot, and just the suddenness and the randomness of life sometimes. We don't always know what's around the corner, and I certainly didn't. 16-year-old, I was just like any other 16-year-old, playing footy, looking forward to the future, going out with my mates, having fun, and really starting to sort of form an identity and look at life beyond school. And then, as I said, life has a way of sort of changing your plans, whether you like it or not. I went away on a footy trip, as most 18-year-old kids would say yes to.
Sounds like a bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm born and raised in Melbourne, and they said, do you want to go to Tassie with a great group of guys? We're going to go to Hobart for a footy trip. And then, of course, the answer is going to be yes. Never been to Tasmania. And I remember giving Mum a kiss goodbye. Went to Tassie, and unfortunately, somewhere along the line of that trip, must have breathed in at the wrong time or shared a drink with somebody. Maybe I pashed some random chick in Tasmania, who knows, as an 18-year-old kid, and I contracted meningococcal disease. And at the time, there was around about, I think there was 8 or 9 cases of meningococcal, and people
in Australia?
often,
Yeah.
No, in Hobart at the time.
At the time, right.
And people often refer to it as like a cluster sort of thing. And that wasn't the case. None of the people that had contracted it. I was in the bed next to one other guy, and we hadn't come into any contact. It was just sort of like a sort of time of year type thing, from what I understand. But yeah, just probably a bit run down. The year before I went away on the footy trip, I had glandular fever, so I can only imagine maybe my immune system was maybe a little bit affected, but just random. And the impacts and the significance of, as I said, breathing in, something as simple as breathing in at the wrong time were pretty substantial. And I slipped into a coma for 6 weeks, and my family came down, and I was given the prayer of the last rites 3 times by the priest down there.
Life and death, basically.
They were told
life
to
and
say
death
goodbye.
situation.
Yeah, I mean, didn't really give me much chance. It was about a 5% chance to live. I had full-blown septicemia. And getting through those 6 weeks was obviously, I can't even imagine, the most traumatic thing in the world for my family. I was totally unaware of what's gone on, but then my sort of recovery and my battle to survive started once I woke up. And then it was all, considerations around infection and, getting through the next day and these sort of things. And in total, it was 6 months in hospital, and then dealing with the impacts of septicemia, which is life-saving surgery, resulting in my right leg originally gone, half of my left foot was amputated, a couple of fingers on my right hand, bit of my nose, and all this skin grafting and that sort of stuff. And then, obviously, ground zero from a health perspective. You're dormant for so long. I'll go from 80 kilos down to 47, and the mountain before me was certainly seemed insurmountable at that time.
And I suppose that life and death situation, you're sort of probably not thinking too much about the future. You're just thinking about how do I get to tomorrow, rather than whereas yours, Ben, wasn't necessarily a life and death situation, but life changing all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was never a, hey, life is in danger here, or you're physically impacted. But like, I felt exactly the same, but it was the adjustment for me was very much around every single day for 16 years of my life. I'd been able to wake up, open my eyes, and they just worked. You didn't have to think about them working. Like, none of us wake up in the morning, open our eyes and go, oh, thank goodness they work again today.
Exactly.
Like, you just don't do it.
No.
You get so used to them just being a part of the way in which your body works that we do take so much in life for granted, and then all of a sudden it's gone. For me, the adjustment was over nearly months, because your body's so used to it just working naturally, waking up and going, oh yeah, that's right, I can't see. And then the next day, waking up, your brain thinks those eyes are going to work, and they don't. So that was the adjustment period for me, for your body and your mind to really get used to the fact that those things that used to work for 16 years, 365 days a year, and see every single detail of the world now don't.
Now, thanks, gents. That's great to get a real, for our audience to hear the stories of how you've got to where you've got to. But you've got a really important message, haven't you? You both. I think one thing that stands out from your stories is resilience. Like you're both sitting here in front of us as fathers and successful people. You're travelling to Australia, giving your message to people. How do you find that resilience?
I think we had a really great question at one of the events while we've been up here in Mildura last night, and I think the question was around, has your experience made you more resilient? And I think the answer is probably no.
Okay.
Maybe not. But I think that coming from the approach that every single person that lives on Earth, I feel, is pretty resilient. Sometimes things get in the way, and we've just got to find, well, what are the tools we need to actually overcome the things that we are faced with in life. And I think if you asked Benno, or if you asked me, that if 16-year-old kids or 15-year-old kids, in a few years you're going to go through, losing your legs to meningococcal or losing your sight overnight, a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old say, mate, there's no way I can bloody do that. There's absolutely no way. But it's not until you're faced with something that you really, find out what you're capable of achieving. And I think that's a really optimistic viewpoint to come from when it comes to resilience. I think everyone is really resilient. It's just got to, how do we tap into it and unlock it?
And obviously it's taking you both, as you said, Ben, you sort of nearly spent half your life seeing and half your life not seeing. So it's been a while, since these
absolutely.
things happened to your life. So do you feel like you're a more resilient person these days because of it?
I probably would. Yeah, I do agree with Mike. I think potentially more resilient, but I think so many people have resilience. We're big believers that it's not a lack of resilience that society has, or it's not something that we need more of. Because if and when we ask a room full of people, be it at a conference, be it at team workshop, be it an event like we've been doing in Mildura, more so based around the community, or the business breakfast. If we had said, hey, put your hand up if you feel like you need more resilience, pretty much everyone puts their hand up. If that would be helpful the next time you're faced with a challenge. And then you also ask them off the back of that, and put your hand up if you've ever been through a challenge. And you're still here, you're still going. That's the definition of resilience. For us, it's not so much a lack of resilience that's the issue. It's a thing about focus. What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the things that you can't control? And are you focusing on the challenge itself and therefore allowing that to dictate the way you're feeling and the impact that it's having? Or are you focusing on the things you can control and how you choose to respond? So it's more for us about where you're focusing your time and energy rather than the need to be more resilient.
It's interesting because what you're saying is all mind. It's all up in your mind, you know. You're going to choose to think this way or that way. But the experience you've both had is all physical, you know, but you've actually, it's your mind that's helping you overcome it all and live a great, fulfilling life.
It's our most powerful tool, as in not just mine or Mike's, it's everyone's most powerful asset is your mindset.
Great call. I'm going to throw to Lynde. He's got a few questions for you as well, gents.
Yeah, thanks for that, guys. I guess working in finance, I'm really interested in hearing about how life experience shaped the way we think about money. So how has your journey influenced your view of financial security or independence? Mike?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's certainly the randomness of what happened to me has shaped my viewpoint. So I'd have to say that, you know, I'm more of a pessimist when it comes to, you know, thinking about the future and money, and I'm probably more conservative in my approach. And I think there was this great metaphor I was thinking about when we were coming here to chat to you guys, where I had a physio, Heather, and she said to me something that I'll never forget, and it's stuck with me right from rehab days, and we're still good mates to this day, is she said, for you in your particular situation, Mike, every single time you do a push-up or a sit-up or a bench press or something like that, that'll be like putting money in the bank for your physical future. And I thought that was a really great metaphor for me in my situation. And it's true, right? Because the more pain that I'm in, it means that I'm not doing enough exercise and I'm not moving enough. And that's always been a pretty much, you know, a stock standard, undisputable rule for me personally in my situation. But in terms of, I guess from a financial perspective, using that metaphor as approach, it's kind of like, you know, you need to prepare and need to consider what may or may not happen in the future in all avenues. And I guess as a result of that, that's what I try and do. And I think I become, definitely more risk averse than the other way around and try and do things on a more conservative level.
Yeah. What about yourself, Ben?
I think for me, it's probably a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, right? And the importance of having a balance, and also recognising that my perspective on sort of finance in itself has changed with my situation and circumstances changing, not from before losing my eyesight to losing my eyesight, but once I lost my eyesight, you go, hey, tomorrow's not guaranteed. We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, and therefore let's not be super conservative. If there's an opportunity there to go on the holiday, or if it's an opportunity that I've had to have an invitation to go and walk the Kokoda track, and you look at the investment and go, oh, is it worth it, is it not? It's like, hey, let's not leave that till for another 20 years and just put that to the back of the bucket list. Let's do it when the opportunity's there, because losing my eyesight at 16 overnight to a rare genetic condition taught me that nothing in life is guaranteed, and we can't just leave everything that we want to achieve and do, especially if there's dollar signs attached to it, until tomorrow, because that we don't know what that is going to look like. But then the opposite of that has then sort of come into play now that I've had kids. And for me, up until having kids, it was very much about taking those opportunities and those risks and going, yeah, let's live today, because we don't know what's going to come tomorrow. And then now you've got 2 young kids and a family, having that same mindset of I don't know what's going to come tomorrow, that financial security for them is really important. So for me, it's a balance. It's about having that balance of being able to now, as a family unit, go, hey, let's do that today, because we don't know what's going to come tomorrow. But because we don't know what's going to come tomorrow, we need that security for the future as well. So that real balanced approach for me is probably really important.
Yeah, and I guess because you were such a young age when your life changed, you're probably maybe potentially weren't aware of the impact it had on your family and their financial situation and being able to work as well. Something we often see in financial advice is that mindset and behaviour are really deeply connected. Do you see a link between having a positive or resilient mindset and making financial decisions?
I think you're always going to make better decisions, whether it be financial decisions or decisions in life more broadly, when you're in a positive state of mind and you're feeling sort of safe and settled and thinking clearly. Like, it's no different to saying, hey, when you've had a big night out and you're sitting on the couch half cut, probably not the best time to go online shopping, because then you wake up the next day and go, why did I order that, right? It's no different to if you're struggling with your mental health and go, oh, this is going to be the quick fix, or that retail therapy and all the cliches around midlife crisis and going and buying the car or the this or the that. I think that probably absolutely is connected to what you're saying there, which is when you're in a really good place mentally, you're going to make more sound, better decisions, more well thought through, and considering the consequences based on the choices that you make.
Yeah. Anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say similar. It's sometimes our first response isn't our best response. And if you're acting from an emotional perspective and an impulse perspective, I don't think you always make the best decision. So taking a few deep breaths and giving time and consideration to important decisions in your life. And that's not easy, even when you do have all the cards on the table and you have everything out in front of you, coming to a solution, it may not be the right one, but I think giving yourself enough time and space to mull it over rather than making sort of reactive or impulsive decisions to things is pretty important.
Good call.
It sounds logical, doesn't it? But I think, in a real life perspective, a lot of clients that come to us have had something that's triggered them to come, and whether that's an illness or loss of job or, something massive has changed in their life. So, I guess it's a good point that that's not the best time to be making decisions, but getting some advice and helping you through the options. Or at least planning for some of those things if you can. It's
interesting. I this is something that I've, the last few years has become, when you have kids and things, obviously your perspective it changes. And I've been very fortunate to be involved in with a financial planning organisation. I met through a guy that I met who's a wonderful communicator, and just from a planning perspective, I thought was really interesting. And he shared a story about, which I didn't even know you could do this sort of stuff, but like testamentary trusts and those sorts of things, and making sure that you have all your affairs in order is the most responsible thing you can do. And obviously when you have kids and start a family and those sorts of things, responsibility sort of soars, and you're not thinking about yourself anymore. It's got to be, a more well-rounded approach. And he gave an example of someone that had a really life, like you say, they come to them with a life-changing situation or circumstance, and his family throughout that traumatic time was able to access his life insurance policy prior to his death. And that was such a great, I don't know whether you call it a service or what that might look like, but being able to reduce some of the anxiety and stress and overwhelm of that situation, and him knowing that his family was taken care of and looked after, and they were able to make decisions and also probably distract them from that awful life circumstance they face, was pretty remarkable. So there's things, I think what I'm trying to say is it's around education and knowing what's available to you and how can you best support.
It's a big area, isn't it? It's a big area, Lynde, isn't it? And I know just from working here, I'm in marketing, so I'm not necessarily a finance person, but knowing what these guys do with things like personal insurance, income protection, TPD, trauma. So there's all these things that you can put in place so that if something happens, you can concentrate on your physical, mental recovery, and you're not anxious about the financial side of things. So I suppose, and it's a lot like I always say, a financial planner is like your footy coach. That's your person you're going to for the advice because you don't know it yet. You're just a young footballer. You don't know all the ins and outs of the game. Yeah, that's why you need a coach. So good in a lot of ways, that's what Lynde is. Have you got a whistle, Lynde?
Yeah.
A whiteboard with magnets on it.
That's it.
Slightly different tools, Gav. Yeah.
I hope she's a little less harsh than my footy coach, Benny.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
We did hear that one yesterday. He sounded harsh, very harsh.
And I guess, that sort of leads to the next question, I guess, about navigating systems. So whether it's support services, funding or financial planning, it can be really complex, and interested to hear what your experience has been like.
I think for me, it's really unique in the sense that digital accessibility plays a huge role in me being able to independently access anything in life, and from your banking apps to financial planning to signing documents and reading documents. That's a complex process, and it's not just someone who can't see that can be hard for it. It can be someone from a whole range of walks of life, right? And with different access requirements and needs. So I think the thing for me that I always sort of suggest for any organisations out there, like your customer base is so broad in terms of their unique set of needs and how you can best cater to them. For me, it's about considering everyone and having that universal approach in a multiple different sort of platforms that you can engage with them on. So I would much prefer someone on my financial team giving me a phone call and just talking me through a strategy, or having a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, rather than sending me a 10-page document of different options and plans and whatnot. So it's just a horses for courses approach to overcome some of those sort of systemic barriers and platform barriers that are out there, especially in this financial world when there is so much multi-step authentication. Everything's going online, which makes it easier, but then at the same time can make it harder for some people as well. Like the inconsistency between banking apps, for instance, and the ability for me to manage my finances independently with one banking branch or brand is then a completely different experience to the next one. So some consistency and making sure that everyone's considered when we are supporting people's financial journeys and independence and security, I think is something that's probably really important, and making sure that it's user-led. So not just assuming what people want and need, but asking the customers like myself, hey, how can we best support you in your financial journey, I think is something that I come up against quite often. And then through trial and error, you find what works.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You should talk to the government about compliance, having to give you a 70-page written document.
Yeah, that's it. And there's so many of them. It's like, hey, how can we deliver this in a way that's a little bit easier to consume for someone who can't see?
Yeah, having options.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly right.
I must admit, Lynde, at M Group here, because we've got lots of divisions under the one group, under the one, you come and see your accountant, your financial planner all in the one meeting.
Yep.
We really pride ourselves on the fact that you can come in, see people face to face. And I think even yesterday I was talking to Leanne here about their email database of the clients, and she said, some clients don't have email because they're in that generation that don't have email. So we've got to deal with them a different way. And I think you've got to, as a business, you've got to really, be able to be flexible, because as Ben said, not everyone's going to accept a 12-page document with some digital signatures at the bottom.
Mm. Yeah,
even though that's the
exactly
easiest way to do it.
And is the best process me getting an email that I've then got to forward on to my wife to sign anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, because I actually can't sign it due to it not being screen reader friendly.
Yeah.
So it's hey, are we going to sort of tick the box at a level that goes, yes, we're technically accessible. However, we could actually go one step further and become much more accessible for so many more people by just going, hey, we can be better. That we're at the foundation here, but the ceiling's so much higher than that if we're prepared to speak to our clients, like you say, like you're doing at M Group, and going, because there are different groups of clients with different needs, let's cater to them. And I think, like you said, that one-stop shop is a really cool part of it as well. To have somewhere and someone you can speak to sort of get advice on a range of different topics and areas is always helpful as well.
It's really what we sort of pride ourselves on, isn't it, Lynde?
Yeah.
Having different professionals all in the same room.
Yep. You can pick a lot of brains
Sign
in one area.
Yes.
Mike, did you have anything to add to that with your navigating of systems?
No, I was just enjoying listening to Ben talk about that, and I don't know. I'd love to ask Benny, if you didn't have the user experience and good access requirements in a banking, would that maybe prompt you to just change banks altogether? So they're going to lose customers essentially if they're not taking consideration to, from an accessibility perspective.
Oh, big time. And you don't just lose me, you lose me
and
my wife. Then our kids, when we set accounts up for them, like it's always not just you're losing that one person with the access needs. You're losing all the people they're connected to. And then I tell my parents, and they're like, oh, well, if they're not catering to you, well, let's change banks as well. Like, let's make a stand together. Especially when, and it's not like I'm the sort of person that will just go, oh, they're not accessible, I'm leaving. It's hey, these are some of the issues. You communicate that with them, and are they open to fixing them, working through them, making improvements? If that's a yes, then great. But the interesting thing now, and this is just something for, I think, all organisations out there, no matter what industry you're in, to be aware of, is there's such an appeal to being so visually cool and dynamic, and with things flashing up and popping up. Things for me were more accessible 5 and 10 years ago from a screen reader technology perspective than they are today.
Wow.
My banking app was better 5 years ago.
Because it wasn't trying to pop up and sell you something else.
No, that's it. Like, apps were newer back then, so they were simpler. And they were more intuitive and sort of easily set out and easy to use. So now I would much rather, like, social media is the same. It was easier for me to use social media 5 years ago.
So it's interesting, isn't it, Ben? Because it's not the technology that's changed; it's got better. It's just that humans have got involved and said, "Oh, we want to."
But we want it to flash. We want the wheel to pop up and go do the free spin and see what you're winning. None of that's accessible.
It's got better for some people, but not for Benny.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think about, like, what he just said there rings a bell. Is you're not just losing Ben, losing his family and then his kids and everything like that. Because it's sort of like you're probably not going to change banks if you're not unhappy. And I remember back in, like, prep in Sydney, we used to have our little own. Every kid had their own checkbook, and we were in the Dolomites Club.
Yeah, the Commonwealth.
The Commonwealth. They were recruiting us at that age. Like, what a great marketing, plan. And I'm not with the Commonwealth Bank, by the way. But the point is, I don't think I've met a person who is a better self-advocate than Ben, and he is proactive in getting out there and doing it. And he's across everything. And for people that maybe aren't as proactive, it's kind of like, well, they're not going to be able to, it's got to be as easy as possible and accessible as possible. Otherwise, they're going to lose out. So it's going to cut off a big revenue stream, given that you've got a lot of people that probably aren't as great at self-advocacy as others. And
That's a good message.
I think about the same thing even, you talk about systems, and Ben and I are very, very lucky to be a part of a wonderful insurance scheme called the NDIS. And I think about the amount of goalpost changes that we've had and all the reform around the NDIS, wonderful scheme, and rightly so. It needs to be, probably reined in a bit, given there's things going on there.
There's a bit in the news about that at the moment,
there is a bit, but I will say, overall, it improves lives, and it gives access to things like prosthetics and technology and these sorts of things, which is absolutely life-changing and amazing, and it makes our life a lot easier. But I think you get what you put in, and you've got to really fight hard and self-advocate for, what you need to have. It's not just going to fall into your lap, and I think that sort of applies again to everything in life, being across things, understanding what the changes are and what you're entitled to, and also, who can you actually, ask for advice. As an example, if I had to get my brand new prosthetic legs, writing the actual report to access those prosthetics, I would have been all out to sea. So it's a collaborative approach. My prosthetist, we worked together, we put together the report and we submitted it, and that gives you the best chance of, making sure that you get the result that you actually need and want.
So it's like anything in life, isn't it? As you said, Mike, it's just navigating systems. Government systems, finance systems.
It's been dogged and determined too. You just got to keep sort of like,
and seeking guidance,
keep punching, right?
Yeah. Which was my next question, actually, was from your experience, what role has guidance, whether that's financial or otherwise, played in your journey, calling on those people with expertise, to give you all the options and the information you need to make an informed decision and help you through those processes?
Super important. I think guidance in any part of life is critical, and you go to people that you trust, first and foremost. Trust and have the experience and the expertise in the area that you need that guidance in, and then if it's no different to a psychologist, we're often talking at events about professional support and the importance of it, and so many people will say, I tried a psychologist once and it didn't work for me, right? And there's a great analogy that one of sort of our friends in the mental health space, Mary O'Brien from AU Bogmate, uses, and uses it talking specifically to farmers about working dogs. And she because you hear that so often from blokes, especially in rural and regional areas. No, I've tried a psychologist once and they just didn't get me. And then Mary will ask them and say, yeah, but have you had a bad working dog? Have you had a bad sheep dog or cattle dog? And they go, yeah. So have you never gotten another one? Have you never tried another one? Well, no, I just got rid of that one and got a new dog. And then that one didn't work and I got a new dog and a new dog until I got the right one. And a psychologist is the exact same, and therefore guidance in the financial space. If you don't feel like that person is understanding where you're at, or that organisation isn't giving you exactly what you need in terms of guidance, it's about continuing to not just advocate but explore and try a new one and a new one and a new one until you find that right fit for you. And for me, I've definitely gone down that path where you've got guidance that was, for me, really good at the time before I was married and had kids, and then that changes. So then you sort of change when and as your needs change as well. And there's organisations out there that are great at supporting the whole way through, and then there's others that are very much great for a certain period in life or a time in life or a position that you're in currently, and it might be, all right, I'm ready to invest, and that might be a different set of guidance needed compared to buying your first home, for instance.
Yep. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Just asking them the right questions and getting that connection for what you need at the time. Yeah,
and being prepared to continually explore the options that are out there in terms of support and guidance, because there's so much great stuff out there, and we're big believers that you shouldn't need to tackle anything in life alone. Like, there's so many people out there finding their way, trying new things, and prepared to share the lessons. Like, that's what things like this podcast are all about. And let's not go it alone if we don't have to. Like, why not try and seek that help and guidance when it's there and accessible and available?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, gents. Great to talk about some of your journeys, your story, your resilience to get here, but you're also podcasters. So do you want to give a bit of a shout out to the Talkin Tough podcast? How did all that come about? And let us know.
we do. We're very lucky to partner with an awesome charity in South Australia called Ski for Life, and we do a lot of community tours, and they're fast paced, they're hectic. I reckon we're up to about number 10 or so, Ben, I would say, probably all over. Whether it's South Australia, Victoria, also New South Wales, we've done some stuff, and it's full weeks, it's schools, and then it's community events like the ones that you guys have experienced as well. And it's about bringing people together for meaningful conversations. And off the back of that, we thought when we did the Talkin Tough podcast, that how could we reach more people? And we got in a studio and just had conversations. And the concept around Talkin Tough is to redefine toughness in the old school way that we used to view it. You know, that all that muscle and brawn and suck it up and get on with things and don't feel what you actually feel. And
Cup of concrete was my favourite.
Cup of concrete often pops up in these sorts of
Everyone's
events.
heard that one.
Yeah, we certainly have. But actually bolting on a better version of that and really celebrating and encouraging people and letting them know that when you do have the courage to step up and talk about what's really going on in your life, that's probably one of the most courageous and tough things that you can actually do. So, advocating for talking about it and getting things off your chest that you need to get off your chest, and knowing that you can do that and not be judged in the process is a pretty important thing. And as Ben said before, particularly out in rural and regional communities where there's a little bit of stigma around professional services, the next best thing is, hey, get them to connect with people that they relate to and that they connect with, but get them to have conversations that are a little bit more meaningful. And that's kind of where the podcast came from. And then Ben also does his own podcast, Flying Blind, which is pretty awesome too if you want to check that one out.
So Talkin Tough, and Flying Blind. Yeah, and the great thing I love about podcasts is that even though you've recorded a few seasons of Talkin Tough and that might have finished up now, the library's still there. Everyone can go back and listen to it. It's
timeless.
Great messaging. So I encourage all our listeners to go and have a listen to both of those podcasts.
Yeah, there's some great conversations there, and I think the Talkin Tough principle is so applicable to finances as well. I think when you think about people having money issues and financial hardship, for so long it's been such a taboo topic that no one wants to sort of put their hand up and go, yeah, I'm strapped for cash at the moment, or things are really tight, or I'm not in a good way. And I think that, hey, let's talk about the tough stuff and make it okay. So just as much as we talk about there being stigma associated with mental health, financial hardship has such a strong connection with poor mental health that I think needs to be something that we just need to be open in talking about. If you're having a week where you're unable to make ends meet, you should be able to comfortably say that without judgment to a mate, or whether it be a mate, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a psychologist, whether it's a financial advice team. You want to be able to make that phone call proactively rather than leaving it until it's too late. So essentially, that's what Talkin Tough's all about from a lifestyle point of view, but the same principles apply.
It's great. As I said, I encourage all of our listeners to go and have a listen to Talkin Tough and Flying Blind. How's my memory going? Nah. Well, Ben and Mike, thank you so much for sharing your story so openly with us today. There's so much in this conversation, from resilience to perspective. Really reframes how we think about financial security. So thank you, Lynde, for attending as well. Thanks, to our listeners, if today's episode has resonated with you, remember the small steps, the right support and the right mindset can make a powerful difference over time. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the M Group FS360 podcast. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Mike. And thanks, Lynde.
Thanks, Gavin. Thanks, Lynde.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ben.
Hi guys, just wanted to jump on and give a bit of a shout out to today's episode. Was kind of brought to you by the Northern Mallee Leaders organisation, which we've at M Group have gladly sponsored this week. They're holding the Mallee Community Wellbeing Week 2026 this week, and our two guests today, Mike and Ben, were the major guests and guest speakers for the week. And so a really big shout out to the Mallee Community Wellbeing Week 2026 and the Northern Mallee Leaders for organising. Cheers. You've been listening to the FS360 podcast. Financial Security 360 is at the centre of what we do. If you'd like to speak to one of our professionals about a range of individual and business needs, give us a call.